In the year 2157, humanity reached beyond the stars they had been exploring for decades. Their ships had grown faster, their technology more advanced, and their curiosity remained endless. Among the fleet of Earth vessels, the exploration vessel Defiance led the charge into unexplored space. Its hull bore the scars of asteroid impacts and cosmic radiation, testament to the harsh universe humans had evolved to challenge. Captain Samuel Wright stood on the bridge of the Defiance, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of distant stars. At 43, he had spent most of his adult life in space. His blue uniform, adorned with the patches of previous missions, fit snugly on his tall frame. "Captain, we're detecting an artificial signal," said Communications Officer Diane Miller, her fingers moving rapidly across her console. "It's not one of ours. The pattern is too regular to be natural." Samuel leaned forward, his heartbeat quickening. "First contact," he whispered. For generations, humanity had wondered if they were alone in the universe. They had sent signals into space hoping for a response. Now it seemed someone had answered. "Send the greeting package," Samuel ordered. The greeting package contained basic mathematical sequences, images of Earth and its people, and simple language lessons. Earth's best minds had created it specifically for first contact scenarios. 3 tense days passed before they received a response. When it came, the message was clear. The aliens understood and wanted to meet. They called themselves the Galactic Concordat, a coalition of 7 advanced species who had maintained peace among the stars for thousands of years. The meeting location was a neutral space station orbiting a red dwarf star. As the Defiance approached, Samuel gazed out at the alien structure. Unlike human designs, which favored practical angles and reinforced sections, the station flowed like water frozen in space, beautiful and seemingly delicate. "It's like they've never had to worry about their ships taking damage," noted Chief Engineer Ryan Parker. The landing party consisted of 5 people: Captain Wright, Ambassador Lisa Carter, a skilled diplomat with gray-streaked black hair and steady hands, Dr. Ben Foster, xenobiologist, Security Chief Maria Lopez, and linguist John Grant. When the airlock opened, Samuel caught his first glimpse of aliens. The 3 representatives waiting for them looked nothing alike. One resembled a tall, praying mantis with iridescent skin. Another floated in what appeared to be a water tank on mechanical legs. The third stood on 4 legs with 2 arm-like limbs extended in greeting, its skin a pale blue. "Welcome, humans," said the blue 4-legged alien, its voice coming through a translator device. "I am Delegate Zorn of the Concordat. We have awaited this meeting with great anticipation." Ambassador Carter stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth and all humanity, we thank you for this welcome." The aliens guided them through hallways that adjusted size and shape as they walked, accommodating the different species with elegant efficiency. They arrived at a large circular room where representatives from all 7 Concordat species waited. "Your species is fascinating," said a small floating creature with multiple eyes. "You evolved on what we would classify as a death world. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, high oxygen content, thousands of predator species. Yet here you are among the stars." "Humans are adaptable," Samuel replied simply. Over the next few days, the humans learned about the Concordat. The 7 species had discovered each other thousands of years ago and formed their alliance for mutual benefit. They shared technology, resources, and knowledge. War was a distant memory for them. Most of the species had evolved as cooperative herbivores, with natural instincts toward community rather than competition. When negotiations began for Earth to join the Concordat, Ambassador Carter provided information about human history and culture. The aliens' reaction was not what the humans expected. "You had over 15,000 wars in your recorded history?" asked Delegate Zorn, his translator unable to hide his shock. "And your species still exists?" "We learn from our mistakes," Lisa said carefully. "These weapons," said the mantis-like delegate, displaying images from Earth's military museums. "They were designed specifically to harm others of your kind?" Samuel and Lisa exchanged glances. The concordant races had never developed weapons beyond ceremonial tools. The concept of designing technology specifically for warfare was foreign. To them, humanity's past has dark chapters, Lisa admitted, but we've grown beyond many of our violent tendencies. The negotiations continued uneasily. The concordant found humans fascinating but frightening. They debated among themselves whether humanity was too dangerous to include in their peaceful coalition. On the 5th day of talks, everything changed. A concordant ship arrived at the station, its elegant form damaged and scorched. The aliens became agitated as messages were exchanged. "What's happening?" Samuel asked. Delegate Zorn turned to the humans, his blue skin pale with stress. "The Voidborn have returned. They've attacked our outpost in the SETI system." "The Voidborn?" Lisa asked. "An enemy we thought defeated long ago," explained another delegate. "They disappeared from our space 500 years ago. We believed they had died out or left the galaxy." Samuel straightened. "We can help. The Defiance is equipped with defensive capabilities." The aliens stared at him in surprise. "You would fight for us? We are not yet allies." "That's what humans do," Samuel said simply. "We help when needed." The concordant representatives huddled together, speaking rapidly in their own languages. Finally, Delegate Zorn approached the humans. "Captain Wright, we would be grateful for any assistance. Our people have lived in peace for so long that we have forgotten how to fight. The outpost at SETI holds thousands of civilians with no defenses. Within hours, the Defiance was ready for departure." As Samuel prepared to leave the station, Ambassador Carter pulled him aside. "This could change everything, Sam. If we help them, they'll see we're not just violence and war. They'll see what humanity really stands for." Samuel nodded. "And what's that?" Lisa smiled. "That we fight not because we love violence, but because we love what we're protecting." As the Defiance broke orbit and set course for the SETI system, Samuel looked at the stars ahead. Humanity had spent centuries looking to the heavens and wondering if anyone was out there. Now they knew the answer, and their first act would not be war, but protection. The Defiance accelerated to full speed, its engines glowing blue against the blackness of space. Within its hull, humans prepared for battle not for conquest or hatred, but for the simplest of human reasons, because someone needed help. And in that moment, without knowing it, humanity took its first step toward showing the galaxy why they would become known as the true gods of war. 6 months had passed since the Defiance first engaged the Voidborn at the SETI outpost. That battle had been close, with Captain Samuel Wright barely managing to evacuate the civilians before the station fell. In the time since, the Voidborn had conquered 3 concordant worlds. The peaceful aliens, with their beautiful but fragile ships and ceremonial weapons, stood no chance against the relentless enemy. The Concordant Central Council had gathered on their homeworld, Luminara, a planet of towering crystal spires and floating gardens. In their grand meeting chamber, representatives from all 7 species debated their options. For the first time in thousands of years, fear filled the elegant room. "We have no choice," said Delegate Zorn, his blue skin now marked with stress lines. "We must formally request Earth's military assistance." The request traveled across space to Earth, where the United Earth government called an emergency session. The broadcast reached billions of humans across the solar system. On the screen, General Alan Fitzgerald stood before the assembly, his uniform crisp, his gray hair cut short, and his expression grave. "The Concordant has asked for our help," he said simply. "I believe we should give it." 2 weeks later, General Fitzgerald arrived at Luminara aboard the UES Challenger, Earth's largest warship. Unlike the flowing lines of concordant vessels, the Challenger was blocky and angular, its hull thick with armor plating and weapon systems. The general was joined by Dr. Olivia Martinez, a xenobiologist with warm brown eyes and quick hands who had been studying the limited information available on voidborn biology. The concordant representatives met them in orbit, their faces showing relief mixed with concern. "How many ships will Earth send?" asked Delegate Zorn. 30, replied Fitzgerald. The aliens looked at each other in confusion. "Only 30. The Voidborn have hundreds. Fitzgerald smiled slightly. 30 is the entirety of Earth's space navy. But trust me, it will be enough to make a difference. The Concordat didn't understand until they witnessed the first engagement. A Voidborn fleet approached the Talus system, 50 ships strong. The human fleet moved to intercept, their ships spreading into a formation the Concordat observers had never seen before. "Why do they separate?" asked a Concordat admiral. "Should they not stay together for protection?" As the battle began, the answer became clear. Human ships were built differently. Where Concordat vessels were designed for efficiency and beauty, human warships were built with redundant systems and designed to continue fighting while damaged. They maneuvered in ways the Voidborn couldn't predict, drawing enemy ships into killing zones and supporting each other with overlapping fields of fire. When hit, human ships didn't shatter like Concordat vessels. They took damage and kept fighting. The Challenger itself absorbed 3 direct hits that would have destroyed any alien ship, and still managed to destroy 7 Voidborn vessels. After the battle, Dr. Martinez made a disturbing discovery. She had been examining tissue samples from destroyed Voidborn ships. "They're not fully sentient," she explained to General Fitzgerald and the Concordat Council. "The Voidborn are biological weapons created by a species that went extinct long ago. They were programmed to spread and conquer, and without creators to recall them, they've simply continued their mission for thousands of years." This revelation shocked the Concordat but made perfect sense to the humans. The Voidborn tactics were repetitive and predictable once you understood their patterns. They weren't adapting to human strategies because they couldn't think creatively. General Fitzgerald proposed a bold plan. "We shouldn't just defend. We need to take the fight to the enemy." The Concordat Council was horrified. "Attack? We cannot. Invade their territory. Defense is the only moral option." Fitzgerald shook his head. "The Voidborn don't think like you or me. They don't understand surrender or peace, they only understand completing their programming. If we stay defensive, they'll keep coming until they overwhelm us through numbers." He spread a star map across the table. "We need to find their production centers and destroy them. Cut off their ability to make more ships and troops. It's the only way to end this war." The concept of a counteroffensive was foreign to the Concordat. In their history, conflicts had been resolved through diplomacy or at worst defensive actions until aggressors gave up. The idea of taking the fight to the enemy had never occurred to them. Reluctantly, the Council agreed to Fitzgerald's plan. Though many remained troubled by what they saw as an aggressive strategy, scouts were sent out to locate Voidborn bases and the human fleet prepared for offensive operations. Dr. Martinez continued studying the Voidborn. Working with Concordat scientists, she discovered something unexpected in their communication patterns. "They're receiving orders from somewhere," she told Fitzgerald one night as they reviewed data in the Challenger's war room. "All Voidborn ships follow complex patterns that couldn't have been pre-programmed thousands of years ago." Fitzgerald looked up from the battle plans. "You think someone's controlling them? Their creators didn't go extinct?" "I don't know," Martinez admitted. "But there's a signal. It's faint and encoded in ways we don't understand yet, but it's there." As they spoke, an alert sounded. Concordat sensors had detected a massive Voidborn fleet assembling near one of their core worlds, Elysium. The human fleet was 3 days away at best speed. "They're learning," Fitzgerald said grimly. "They're targeting worlds we can't reach, in time." The Concordat forces at Elysium were minimal. 2 defense platforms and a handful of ships that were more ceremonial than combat effective. The planet itself was home to over 1 billion civilians, none of whom had ever experienced war. Fitzgerald sent an urgent message to Earth. "Request immediate deployment of all reserve forces to Elysium system." The response was not what he hoped. No reserves available, all ships already deployed. On Elysium, panic spread as news of the approaching Voidborn fleet reached the population. The Concordat had no evacuation plans. They had never needed them before. General Fitzgerald looked at the star map, calculating times and distances. There was no way the human fleet could reach Elysium before the Voidborn. Millions would die. "Get me a secure channel to all human ships," he ordered. When the connection was established, he spoke clearly and calmly. "All vessels, This is General Fitzgerald. I am authorizing Protocol Omega. I repeat, Protocol Omega is now in effect. Dr. Martinez looked at him in shock. Alan, that's a last resort measure. Fitzgerald nodded grimly. That's exactly what this is. Across human space, reserve vessels that had been deemed too old or damaged for frontline service powered up their engines. Ships that had been museums or training facilities crewed by veterans and cadets prepared to jump to Elysium. The war was about to enter a new phase, and humanity was about to show the galaxy what it truly meant to be the gods of war. The space around Elysium filled with flashes of light as ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. First came the Voidborn fleet, over 60 vessels of varying sizes, their organic-looking hulls moving in perfect formation. They approached the planet with single-minded purpose, ignoring the 2 defensive platforms that orbited Elysium. Then, just as the Voidborn prepared to attack, another series of flashes lit up space. Old human ships, some bearing scorch marks and patches from previous conflicts, appeared behind the Voidborn fleet. There were only 15 vessels, a mix of retired warships and converted cargo ships, but they moved with purpose. On the bridge of the UES Valor, a 20-year-old heavy cruiser that had been serving as a training vessel until 2 days ago, Lieutenant Kelly Douglas gripped the edge of the tactical console. At 32, with red hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that had seen combat before, she was the most experienced officer aboard a ship crewed mainly by cadets and instructors. All weapons hot, she ordered. Remember your training. The Voidborn don't adapt quickly. Use that against them. The human ships attacked from behind, targeting the largest Voidborn vessels first. The Valor shuddered as its main guns fired, striking a Voidborn cruiser. The hit caused damage, but the enemy ship didn't explode or break apart. Their hulls are tougher than the Concorde, it said, reported a young weapons officer. Kelly nodded. Aim for their propulsion systems. If we can't destroy them, we'll cripple them. Across the human fleet, similar adjustments were being made. What the ships lacked in numbers, they made up for in the experience of their commanders. The Voidborn, caught between attacking Elysium and defending against the humans, split their forces. It was exactly what Kelly had hoped for. Now, she commanded. The human ships executed a synchronized maneuver, concentrating fire on the divided Voidborn fleet. On Elysium's surface, engineer Paul Watson worked frantically with Concordate technicians to modify their planetary shield generators. Paul was stocky and bearded, with hands that showed years of practical work. The Concordate engineers watched in fascination as he bypassed safety systems and rerouted power in ways their training told them were dangerous. Won't this overload the generators? Asked one of the aliens. Yes, Paul answered without looking up from his work. But it will hold longer before it fails, and right now we need every minute we can get. The Concordate had never designed technology with combat in mind. Their shields were created to protect against radiation and natural hazards, not concentrated weapons fire. Paul's modifications went against every principle of their engineering philosophy, trading efficiency and longevity for short-term strength. Shield capacity increased by 30%, Paul announced, wiping sweat from his forehead. It won't last forever, but it should give us more time. In orbit, the battle continued. 3 human ships had been destroyed, and 5 more severely damaged. The remaining vessels fought on, their captains using tactics the Voidborn couldn't anticipate. The enemy lost more ships, but they still outnumbered the humans. Kelly's ship took a direct hit, knocking out communications. Unlike Concordate vessels, which relied on constant coordination, human ships were trained to operate independently. Without waiting for orders, Kelly continued the fight, targeting a Voidborn vessel that was moving toward the planet. Throughout the battle, Dr. Olivia Martinez observed from a Concordate science vessel at the edge of the system. She noticed something odd about the Voidborn fleet. They're becoming less coordinated, she told the Concordate scientists. When we take out certain ships, others become more erratic. Perhaps those ships contain command nodes, suggested a Concordate researcher. Olivia's eyes widened with realization. That's it. They have a hierarchical control structure. If we can identify and target their command ships, we might be able to disrupt the entire fleet. She quickly sent her findings to the human fleet, but the message never arrived. The Voidborn had begun jamming communications. Without knowing about Olivia's discovery, the human ships continued fighting as best they could. On the Valor, Kelly noticed the same pattern Olivia had seen. When certain Voidborn ships were damaged, nearby enemy vessels became less effective. Target that larger ship with the unusual antenna structure, she ordered. Full power to weapons. The Valor's remaining guns fired, striking the Voidborn command ship. The effect was immediate. Nearby enemy vessels began moving in confused patterns, some even colliding with each other. Keep targeting ships with similar structures, Kelly commanded. The human fleet adjusted their strategy, focusing on what they now recognized as command vessels. Without central coordination, the Voidborn attack faltered. On Elysium, Paul watched the orbital battle through a telescope. The Concordate civilians had been moved to underground shelters, but Paul and his team remained on the surface, monitoring the shield generators. "Your people fight even when victory seems impossible," said one of the Concordate engineers. "Why?" Paul thought for a moment. "Because that's when fighting matters most. Anyone can fight when winning is easy." The engineer seemed troubled by this answer. "The Concordate believes that fighting should be avoided if possible. That peace is always preferable." "So do humans," Paul replied. "But we also know that sometimes you have to fight to protect peace." In orbit, the tide of battle was turning. The human ships had identified and destroyed most of the Voidborn command vessels. The remaining enemy ships were disorganized, their attacks uncoordinated. Then a new wave of light flashes appeared at the edge of the system. The main human fleet had arrived, led by General Fitzgerald aboard the Challenger. Fresh human warships joined the battle, quickly overwhelming the remaining Voidborn vessels. After the battle, Fitzgerald met with Kelly and the other survivors from the reserve fleet. "You did the impossible," he told them. "You held off a superior force long enough for reinforcements to arrive. Elysium and its people are safe because of you." Kelly looked around at her fellow officers, many of whom were being treated for injuries. "We lost good people today." "Yes," Fitzgerald agreed solemnly. "And the Concordate needs to understand that sacrifice. This is the reality of war that they've been sheltered from for thousands of years." Later, as Concordate medical ships tended to human wounded, Dr. Martinez made another discovery about the Voidborn. "They're all connected somehow," she explained to Fitzgerald. "The command ships we destroyed weren't just giving orders. They were relaying instructions from somewhere else, somewhere beyond this system." Fitzgerald frowned. "So destroying these ships was only a temporary solution. Whoever or whatever is controlling the Voidborn is still out there." "Yes," Olivia confirmed. "And I think they're learning from each encounter with us. The Voidborn may be biological weapons, but their controller is adapting." As the humans and Concordate gathered to plan their next move, the true war was just beginning, and humanity would need to teach their alien allies what it truly meant to be warriors if they hoped to survive what was coming. 1 month after the battle at Elysium, change swept through the Concordate. Their once beautiful ships now bore angular armor plating. Their ceremonial military had adopted rank structures and combat training. The peaceful aliens were learning the ways of war. Not all Concordate members approved of these changes. A faction led by Elder Trill, a respected leader of the Mantis-like Vereen, argued against the human influence. "We are becoming what we have always feared," Elder Trill said, during a council meeting. "If we adopt human methods to defeat the Voidborn, have the Voidborn not already won by destroying what we are?" Many Concordate representatives nodded in agreement, but Delegate Zorn stood firmly. "We cannot defeat the Voidborn with philosophy alone," he replied. "The humans fight not because they love violence, but because they understand its necessity." On the Concordate Military Training Station, Commander Eric Bennett worked with alien officers. At 40, Eric had silver streaks in his dark hair and carried himself with the confidence of someone who had seen combat but never grown comfortable with it. Among his students was Skeek, a four-armed alien whose species prided themselves on their peaceful history. Again, Eric ordered as Zakik's team failed another combat simulation. "The Voidborn won't give you a second chance, so we can't either." Zakik's upper arms crossed in frustration. "This is not our way. My people were diplomats and artists for 10,000 years before humans even learned to write." Eric nodded. "And that's something to be proud of. But right now you need to learn our way if your people are going to survive." Reluctantly, Zakik and his team reset the simulation. This time they followed Eric's instructions precisely, communicating effectively and supporting each other through the exercise. When they succeeded, Eric saw something change in Zakik's eyes, not joy in the victory, but understanding of what humans had always known. Sometimes survival required strength. Aboard the science vessel Discovery, Dr. Olivia Martinez worked with Concordate researchers to understand the Voidborn better. They had captured intact components from enemy ships and were studying the biological technology. "The Voidborn aren't just following simple programming," Olivia explained to General Fitzgerald during a video conference. "They're receiving instructions from somewhere. And based on the communication patterns we've decoded, I believe they're building something." "Building what?" asked Fitzgerald, his face grave on the screen. "We don't know yet. But whatever it is, it's happening at the edge of the galaxy, in unclaimed space." Fitzgerald rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "We need more information. I'm authorizing a reconnaissance mission to investigate. The mission would be led by Commander Bennett and Zakik, whose team had shown the most improvement among the Concordate forces. Their ship, the Eclipse, was a hybrid vessel, combining human weapon systems with Concordate stealth technology. As they prepared to depart, Eric noticed Zakik studying images of Earth. "Your world has so much water," the alien observed, "and so many different terrains. Mountains, deserts, forests, oceans, all on one planet. Earth is what we call a challenging world," Eric explained. "Those diverse environments forced humans to adapt constantly. Perhaps that's why we became good at fighting. We've been fighting our own planet just to survive since the beginning." Zakik considered this. "My homeworld has one climate, one terrain. We evolved without having to struggle against our environment." He paused. "I used to think that made us superior. Now I wonder if it made us unprepared." The Eclipse departed for the edge of the galaxy, a journey that would take 2 weeks even with faster-than-light travel. During that time, Eric continued training Zakik's team, but their relationship slowly evolved from teacher and students to something closer to colleagues. "Your people despise us, don't they?" Eric asked one evening as they shared a meal in the ship's dining area. Zakik's forearms moved in a gesture that Eric had learned meant careful consideration. "Not despise. Fear, perhaps. Your species achieves in decades what took us millennia. You build weapons as easily as we create art. You adapt to new threats with disturbing speed." Zakik paused. "But I no longer fear humans as I once did. I see now that your strength comes from caring deeply about what you protect." As they neared their destination, the Eclipse detected Voidborn activity and went into stealth mode. The ship approached a massive structure being built in empty space, a vast ring surrounded by smaller components, all composed of the same organic technology as Voidborn ships. "What is that?" whispered Zakik. Eric had fought in enough wars to recognize certain patterns. "It looks like a communication array, but larger than anything I've ever seen." They recorded detailed scans and prepared to leave, but a patrol of Voidborn ships detected them despite their stealth systems. The Eclipse fled, pursued by enemy vessels. "They're faster than before," Eric noted grimly as he took the weapon controls. "They're evolving their technology." The Eclipse managed to escape, but not before taking damage. As they limped back toward Concordate space, they analyzed the data they had gathered. Dr. Martinez joined them via video link, her expression becoming increasingly troubled as she reviewed their findings. "This isn't just a communication array," she concluded. "Based on the energy signatures, I believe the Voidborn are trying to establish contact with something outside our galaxy. They're building a transmitter powerful enough to reach another galaxy entirely." "They're creators?" Eric suggested. "Possibly," Olivia replied. "Or perhaps they're trying to summon more Voidborn. Either way, if they succeed, what we've faced so far will seem minor in comparison." Back at Concordat headquarters, the council debated what to do with this information. The faction opposed to human methods had grown stronger, claiming that the reconnaissance mission had only provoked the Voidborn. Further, "We should seek peace," insisted Elder Trill. "Perhaps we can communicate with the Voidborn, understand their needs." General Fitzgerald shook his head. "The Voidborn aren't interested in communication with us. Their biological weapons following their programming. The only language they understand is force." "Then what do you suggest?" asked Delegate Zorn. "A strike force," Fitzgerald replied. "A joint human concordat fleet to destroy that array before it becomes operational." The debate grew heated. Some concordat representatives couldn't accept the idea of a preemptive strike, while others recognized the necessity. As the argument continued, news arrived that 3 more concordat colonies had gone silent. The Voidborn were expanding their territory more aggressively. In the medical bay of the Eclipse, Eric sat beside Zgig, who had been injured during their escape. "My people will resist your general's plan," Zgig said weakly. "They will call it an escalation, a betrayal of our principles." Eric nodded. "And what do you think?" Zgig was silent for a long moment. "I think that principles mean nothing if no one remains alive to uphold them." As the Eclipse reached Concordat space, the galaxy stood at a turning point. The Voidborn threat was growing, and humanity's influence was spreading among the stars. The true test of both species was yet to come, and the gods of war would soon need to prove their title. The Grand Council chamber on Luminara was silent as Ambassador Lisa Carter stood before the assembled representatives of the Concordat. At 45, Lisa carried herself with the quiet confidence of a skilled diplomat. Her gray-streaked dark hair was pulled back, and her blue uniform bore the Earth emblem alongside the newly created Human Concordat Alliance symbol. "The Voidborn communication array will be operational in 10 days, she said, her voice clear and firm. "If they succeed in contacting their creators or summoning more of their kind from beyond our galaxy, this war will be lost before it truly begins." Elder Trill rose from his seat, his mantis-like form towering over the other council members. "Ambassador Carter, we respect your species' counsel in military matters, but what you propose is unprecedented. A direct assault on the array would cost thousands of lives. And doing nothing will cost billions," Lisa countered. "This is the moment that will define both our peoples. Will we stand together and fight for our right to exist? Or will we debate philosophy while the Voidborn prepare our extinction?" The chamber erupted in argument. After 3 hours of heated discussion, Delegate Zorn called for a vote. The result was narrow but clear. The strike mission was approved. On the UES Challenger, General Alan Fitzgerald reviewed the final battle plans with his officers and their concordat counterparts. The strike force would consist of 20 human warships and 15 concordat vessels, the largest joint fleet ever assembled. "The array is heavily defended," Fitzgerald explained, pointing to the holographic display. "Our main fleet will engage the Voidborn defenses here, drawing their forces away from the array itself. Meanwhile, a smaller team will approach from behind this asteroid field and plant explosive devices directly on the array's power nodes. Commander Eric Bennett would lead the infiltration team, with Zgig as his second-in-command. Dr. Olivia Martinez had insisted on joining them, arguing that her knowledge of Voidborn biology might be crucial for the mission's success. "The explosive devices must be placed precisely," she told the team during their final briefing. "The array's power distribution isn't uniform. We need to hit these 3 points simultaneously to trigger a chain reaction." As the strike force prepared to depart, Engineer Paul Watson made final adjustments to their equipment. He had developed special shielding technology by combining human and concordat approaches. "These should help you stay undetected longer," he explained to Eric. "But they're not perfect. If the Voidborn get a clear scan, they'll see through the disguise." Throughout the fleet, humans and aliens worked side by side. Lieutenant Kelly Douglas, now promoted and given command of her own ship, the UES Intrepid, trained a mixed crew of human and concordat personnel. "The Voidborn adapt quickly now," she warned her tactical team. "Don't fall into patterns, vary your attack vectors and timing." The strike force departed Luminara amid solemn ceremonies. Many knew they would not return. As they traveled through, faster than light space, Skeek sought out Eric in the ship's observation deck. "If we succeed tomorrow," the alien asked, "what happens after? Will humans return to Earth and leave the Concordat to rebuild?" Eric gazed at the streaking stars outside the viewport. "I don't think either of our civilizations can go back to what they were before. We've changed each other too much." Skeek's forearms moved in a gesture of agreement. "My people have learned the necessity of strength. Perhaps yours have learned something of our appreciation for peace." The next morning, the fleet arrived at the edge of the system containing the array. The main battle group, led by Fitzgerald on the Challenger, moved into position. The infiltration ship, carrying Eric, Zakik, and Olivia, powered down all non-essential systems and began its slow approach through the asteroid field. "Voidborn fleet detected," reported the Challenger's sensor officer. 67 ships in defensive formation around the array. Fitzgerald nodded grimly. "All ships commence attack. Draw them away from the array." The human and Concordat vessels moved forward as one, their weapons blazing. The Voidborn responded immediately, ships breaking, away from the array to intercept the attack. It was the largest space battle in the history of either civilization. On the bridge of the Intrepid, Kelly watched as a Concordat ship took heavy damage, but continued fighting, using tactics she had taught them. "They're learning," she said softly. Meanwhile, the infiltration team reached the array undetected. The massive structure pulsed with eerie blue light, its organic components shifting slightly as if breathing. "Energy levels are rising," Olivia reported as they approached in environment suits. "The array is preparing to activate." They separated, each heading for one of the 3 power nodes Olivia had identified. Eric reached his target first, planting the explosive device according to her specifications. Skik reported success seconds later. They waited for Olivia's confirmation, but her communication remained silent. "Martinez, report," Eric called urgently. When no response came, he turned to Zakik. "Finish setting your device. I'll find her." Eric moved quickly through the strange corridors of the array, following Olivia's locator signal. He found her surrounded by 3 void-born drones, biological constructs that resembled spiders the size of dogs. She was injured but still conscious, her explosive device clutched in her hand. Without hesitation, Eric fired his weapon, destroying 2 of the drones. The third leaped at him, its sharp legs tearing through his suit. Pain flared in his side, but he managed to crush the creature against the wall. "Can you move?" he asked Olivia, helping her up. She nodded weakly. "The node is just ahead. We need to place the charge." Together, they reached the final power node. As Olivia set the explosive, an alarm sounded throughout the array. They had been discovered. "All teams evacuate immediately," Eric ordered through his communicator. "Detonation in 3 minutes." They raced back toward their ship, but more voidborn. Drones appeared, blocking their path. Skeek arrived from another corridor, firing his weapon to clear a path. "Go!" Eric shouted to Olivia. "Get to the ship!" "What about you?" she called back. Eric and Skeek exchanged glances. "We'll hold them off," Skeek answered. "The explosives must detonate on schedule." Olivia hesitated, then nodded and continued toward the ship. Eric and Zakik took defensive positions, fighting side by side against the increasing swarm of drones. In the main battle, the human Concordat fleet was taking heavy losses. The Challenger had sustained significant damage, and 3 Concordat ships had been destroyed. But they had succeeded in drawing most of the void-born vessels away from the array. "Sir," called the communications officer on the Challenger. "The infiltration team reports the charges are set. Detonation in 1 minute." Fitzgerald ordered the fleet to disengage and retreat to safe distance. As they pulled back, the Intrepid detected the infiltration ship leaving the array. "One life sign aboard," reported Kelly's sensor officer. "It's Dr. Martinez." Before anyone could respond, the array exploded in a brilliant flash of blue-white light. The shockwave rippled outward, disrupting the void-born ships. Without the array to coordinate them, the enemy vessels became disorganized, many shutting down completely. In the aftermath, Rescue teams searched for survivors. Olivia was found in the infiltration ship, seriously injured, but alive. She told them of Eric and Zakik's sacrifice, how they had stayed behind to ensure the mission succeeded. 2 weeks later, a ceremony was held on Luminara to honor those lost in the battle. Human and Concordat representatives stood side by side as names were read and memorials unveiled. Ambassador Carter and Delegate Zorn together lit a flame that would burn eternally in remembrance. As the ceremony concluded, an elderly Concordat philosopher approached the podium. Professor Lin was known throughout the Concordat for his controversial theories. "Today, I present my thesis on the dual nature of intelligent life," he began. "I propose that the universe naturally produces two types of intelligent species, the builders like the Concordat races and the protectors like humans. Neither is complete without the other. Together they form the balance necessary for civilization to thrive among the stars." Many in the audience shifted uncomfortably at his words, but others nodded in understanding. The war had changed both humanity and the Concordat in profound ways. Admiral Samuel Wright, once captain of the Defiance, now commander of Earth's expanded fleet, stood at the edge of the gathering. He watched as human and alien children played together in a garden nearby, neither fully understanding the significance of the day, but embodying the future that had been secured. The true gods of war, he mused to himself, aren't those who fight because they love violence. They're those who fight because they love what they're protecting. As new threats emerged on the galaxy's edge, human and Concordat ships set out together, neither fully peaceful nor fully warlike, but stronger for having learned from each other. The gods of war had proven their title, not through conquest, but through sacrifice and protection, and in doing so they had forged a new path among the stars.